I recently had some hands-on time with the Division 2 over at EGX 2018 here in the UK. The build being presented by Ubisoft was the same one seen at Gamescom, showcasing the same combat scenario that was also seen at E3. In a squad of 4, players were tasked with working their way towards a crash-landed plane and battling a bunch of enemies on the way, including a couple of sub-bosses. There was no real setup to the scenario or setting the scene here, this was purely a combat-focused demo. I got hands-on with the Survivalist Specialist, but Ubisoft were also showing off the other 2 specialisations, Sharpshooter and Demolitionist. The loadouts were preset on our geared out level 30 characters, but we were able to loot any dropped gear during the session. The largest change that was instantly noticeable to me was the improvement to gunplay and enemy health. The enemies across the board appear to be much less bullet spongy than the original game. I know Ubisoft spoke about this during their E3 presentation, but it was great to finally get hands on and feel it for myself. Whilst my hands on time was short, the enemy AI certainly felt more responsive than the original game. There's also some fairly satisfying audio feedback upon enemy deaths that wasn't present in the first game. One major change to the Division 2 is enemy armour. Many of the enemies, in particular the game's sub-bosses, now have areas of armour which need to be chipped away first before they'll take any damage. It's a vast improvement coming from the first game's incredibly bullet sponge bosses and stronger enemies. The result of this leads to a much more enjoyable combat flow overall. The changes not only just downright improve the game's combat, but also work to encourage team play. I also noticed that there was more variety in the enemy types that we were facing up against. Some were carrying what I can only describe as a goop thrower, a flamethrower style launcher that fires sticky movement debilitating goop at your character, and others had new forms of weak points such as backpacks containing electrics for example. Although my time with the game wasn't long enough to properly evaluate how the new endgame specialisation system will impact things, it was clear that the added option of a signature weapon helped provide more options during combat. The game visually looked fantastic too, as expected from the Snowdrop engine at this point. The game was running on an Xbox One X's at the show. Unfortunately though, I was the victim of what appeared to be an overheating system, which is an unsurprising situation when so many consoles at the show are just locked inside incredibly poorly ventilated containers. As a result, the game was stuttering almost every second or two, making aiming a serious challenge. I mentioned the issue to one of the Ubisoft reps monitoring our game, who unfortunately simply just put it down to overheating. Really, that station should have been shut down until the situation was resolved, but that didn't appear to happen. The other 3 members of our group were having no issues whatsoever though when I looked across, so I'd chalk this one up to either being a bug with the build or the likely scenario of an overheating console. There were plenty of other minor improvements to the game too, such as UI adjustments and changes to how you loot. For example, pressing up on the D-pad now investigates and allows you to compare items. Another change was that medkits now take time to activate, forcing you to play a little bit more tactical and less gung-ho. The Division 1 was a flawed but enjoyable title that improved significantly over time. Clearly Ubisoft and the team at Massive learnt a lot from their work on the first. A bunch of those small but meaningful lessons were apparent from just short time spent with the game. Fans of the original shouldn't really have anything to worry about here. The Division 2 is shaping up to be one to watch for sure. It's certainly more of the Division, there's no sweeping huge changes here. If you didn't enjoy how the original played, you probably still won't with the sequel. However, it's clear that the team have taken feedback to heart and made numerous smaller but impactful tweaks and adjustments to the game. The Division 2 releases on March the 15th, 2019 for PS4, Xbox One and PC. Players can also sign up to the private beta on the game's website. Be sure to like, share and subscribe for more content like this.